Hello and welcome to What's It Worth? Increasing the Value of Your Child Care Business. My name is Jenny Masal and I am a business consultant with the ICA Group. The ICA Group is a national nonprofit organization with a mission of changing the nature of work by advancing businesses and institutions that center worker voice, grow worker wealth, and build worker power. And we have a team that works in the child care industry. We work with child care business owners across the country and really focus on the business side of owning and operating a child care business. And our work really comes from the understanding that many child care businesses are financially insecure and they're unable to pay living wages both to the owners as well as to the workers. And so we offer business consulting, access to capital, succession planning, and cooperative ownership models to build a better child care industry. This webinar is on ways to increase the value of your child care business. It's based off of a guide on our website called What's It Worth? Understanding and Increasing the Value of Your Child Care Business. And it's part 3 of a 3-part webinar series. So if you missed the other 2 parts, part 1 was on Business Valuation 101. It's a high-level overview of business valuation. And part 2 was on how valuations are conducted and really got into the details on different valuation methods. So you can find these other webinars as well as the guide and other resources on our website at icagroup.org/childcare. So valuation is the process used to estimate the value of a business's assets or equity. It tells you the fair market value of your business and why the fair market value is what it is. And the fair market value is defined as the price at which the business would change hands between a willing buyer and a willing seller, neither being under any compulsion to buy or to sell, and both having reasonable knowledge of relevant facts. And valuations are conducted using multiple methods, but all methods assume that an individual invests in or purchases a business to generate wealth. And so a buyer will consider how much profit the business has generated historically, as well as its ability to generate profit in the future. And because valuations really focus on business profitability, we think it's really important to pay attention to the Iron Triangle metrics, which are a set of metrics developed by child care business and policy expert Louise Stoney. And these 3 metrics are key metrics that drive profitability at your child care center. So the first is full enrollment, which means having full enrollment in every classroom every day. By being fully enrolled, you're increasing the amount of revenue that's coming into your center because increased enrollment is increased tuition, and tuition is revenue in early childhood education. The second metric is full fee collection, so making sure that you are collecting what's owed to you in full and on time. So this includes everything from parent co-pays, parent tuition payments, subsidy reimbursements from the state, food reimbursements, tracking and making sure that what's owed to you for providing care to children is coming into your business. And third, making sure that your revenues cover your per child cost. So when you look at everything that's coming into your business, tuition payments, food reimbursements, any grants or contracts, that those are covering your costs of providing care to children. And if your revenues aren't covering your costs, then your center is losing money and is not profitable. And so these 3 metrics, again, are 3 metrics that we really recommend tracking and monitoring on a regular basis to ensure that your business is profitable, because profitability is so connected to business value. So as you track your business expenses, it can also be useful to compare your spending to what other people in the childcare industry spend on their business. So that's called cost benchmarking. So we've taken the typical costs of operating a childcare center and broken them up into 4 main categories. The first is total childcare and teaching expenses, which includes teaching staff, as well as anything you spend on children's supplies, toys, field trips, the money you're spending to really provide care directly to children. The next category is your total food program expenses, net. So that means after you've accounted for any food program reimbursements, what you're spending on food program that's not covered by that reimbursement. So that could be groceries, kitchen supplies, staff time to prepare food, any catering service, anything like that. Third is total administrative and supervision expenses, which includes the cost of administrative staff, such as a director or an assistant director, any office managers or bookkeepers or accountants that you might hire, as well as other administrative costs of running a child care center. So business insurance, any bank fees, payroll service, things like that. And finally is occupancy expense. And so those are all the costs associated with the building that your child care center occupies. So that might be rent or mortgage payments, as well as utilities, any building repairs you have to pay for, if you pay for snow removal or garbage collection, security services, those are all related to the costs of occupying the building and fall into this category. And the way to compare your costs to others in the industry is to divide your costs by your revenue and to understand your costs as a percentage of your revenue. So for the business in this example, they're spending 63% of their revenue on total child care and teaching expenses. And that's a little high for the industry benchmark. Most people in the industry spend between 50 to 60% on total child care and teaching expenses. The business in this example is in line with industry standards with their food program expenses. They're spending 9%, which is on the lower end of the industry benchmark of 6 to 19% of revenues going towards food program expenses. This business is spending 16% of their revenue on administrative and supervision expenses, which again is in line with the industry benchmark of 12 to 20% of revenue on administrative and supervision expenses. And finally, this business's occupancy expenses are on the low end of industry benchmarks. They're spending 10% of their revenue on occupancy, and the industry benchmark is 10 to 20%. But even with those 3 categories being in line with industry benchmarks, having just that one category of total child care and teaching expenses out of line with industry benchmarks shows how that impacts the profit margin of this business. So because this business is paying more for child care and teaching expenses, they're less profitable. Only 2% of their revenue is going to profit compared to the industry benchmark of 9.7%. So again, you might look at your costs, you see that you're earning a 2% profit margin and you feel good about that, but this just shows that when you compare to others in the industry, it provides some additional data and some additional perspective for you to really understand how your business is performing and how it could be performing better. And so to get into this in a little bit more detail, I want us to compare 2 centers. Center 1 is called Butterfly Daycare, and Center 2 is called Bumblebee Child Care Center. And these centers are similar in that they both have staffed capacity of 100 children, and they both have an average tuition rate of about $215 a week per child. But Center 1 is operating at 70% enrollment. So that's low enrollment. The industry benchmark for enrollment is that you should really aim for 85% enrollment. And so at 70% enrollment, Butterfly Daycare brings in $752,500 in revenue, and that's not enough to cover its costs. So its costs are more than its revenue. So it has an EBITDA of negative $82,025. So it's losing money. And so because the center does not have positive earnings, the estimated value of earnings is $0. And so a potential buyer of Butterfly Daycare would just consider the $50,000 in equipment and supplies that Butterfly Daycare has as assets, resulting in a likely sale price for Butterfly Daycare of $50,000. But Bumblebee Child Care Center is enrolled at 85%. And so it's bringing in more revenue. It's bringing in about $914,000 in revenue. And that's enough to cover its costs. So it has positive EBITDA, positive earnings of $100,950. And so because Bumblebee Child Care Center does have a history of positive earnings, we can apply an earnings multiple of 3 to the EBITDA to produce an estimated valuation of earnings of $302,000 or about $303,000. And so that number represents a likely sale price for Bumblebee Child Care Center. And so these examples really highlight how enrollment impacts profitability, and then for centers that are not profitable compared to centers that do have profit, what that means for the estimated value of earnings for the business and a likely sale price for the business as well. And again, that example really focused on how iron triangle metrics of full enrollment, revenues covering costs, and full collections impact profitability. At the same time, we understand that your iron triangle metrics are impacted by a number of factors, and some of these factors, such as childcare subsidy reimbursement rates, impact your ability to cover costs and be profitable, but are beyond your control. And so for this reason, it's important to understand the many factors that impact your company's value and make decisions that will preserve and increase the value where you can. And so those factors include the facility, having a strong brand, transferable customer base, your staff, having documented policies and procedures, having diversified revenue sources, and having clean and up-to-date financial records. So I'll go into more detail about each of those in the next few slides. So one of the first factors affecting value is your facility. So having a clean and up-to-date facility and a facility that's likely to pass building and licensing inspections, being in compliance with local and state regulations, and being able to ensure that a buyer will continue to have access to the facility, whether that's through building ownership or a long-term lease. Those are all things that minimize risk for a buyer in taking over your business and thus increase the value of your business. Second is having a transferable customer base. So having customers that are loyal to your brand and your child care center, and families that have strong relationships with teachers and staff, as well as having families who are excited about your curriculum. A concern that a buyer would have if they were looking at your center is that if families only have a relationship with you, or if they're only there because of you, if you leave, are those customers going to leave? And are your revenues going to go down as a result? So having families who feel a connection to the center beyond their relationship with you increases buyer confidence that those families would stick around even after an ownership transition, and that revenues and profits wouldn't suffer from that transition. For similar reasons, focusing on your staff, having an independent director or a strong management team and long tenured and committed teachers also increase buyer confidence. For similar reasons that a buyer doesn't want to think that the staff could all leave if you leave the center. And they also want to know that there are other staff with the business who know how to do things and keep things running without you there, that the center won't completely fall apart if you're no longer with the business. Again, that increases buyer confidence, can increase the value of your business. Having a strong brand, so having a distinct brand, a reputation for quality and safety, these are things that make it easier for you to fill spots at your center. This could also be in the form of national accreditation, having rave reviews on social media, having a history of new student referrals from current families because of word of mouth, they're speaking so highly of you, having connections to elementary schools, churches, and community centers, as well as monitoring and adapting to trends and parent preferences like Montessori education or nature-based curriculum. These things contribute to your brand, and having a strong brand makes it easier for you to fill your spots, which brings in more revenue and increases buyer confidence in the value of your business. It's also useful to have a mix of revenue sources. So having state subsidy reimbursements as well as parent co-payments, taking private pay tuition, having quality add-ons, and contracts with Head Start and pre-K programs. Similarly, having a mix of programs like summer camps and after-school care in addition to kind of school year 9 to 5 hour care, and also having strong collections. These all bring in additional revenue and also make you less dependent on one form of revenue. Another important factor is having documented operational policies and procedures. So documents that show how your business runs and create a roadmap for your business to run without you. Again, a buyer wants to know that there is value in your business even if you're not there, that the business won't fall apart when you leave, and that things will be able to run as normal. And so having documented policies and procedures that show that will increase buyer confidence. And finally, having clean and up-to-date financial records, because ultimately a buyer really wants to understand how your business performs financially, and having financial records that provide that information that can clearly answer questions will increase their confidence in your financial performance. So once again, this webinar was part 3 of a 3-part series. This webinar really focused on the factors impacting business value, but definitely check out part 1 and part 2 for an overview of valuation and a deep dive into how valuations are conducted. And this is all offered as part of our succession planning services. So at ICA, we recognize that as an owner of a child care center, you've put your heart and soul into your business and providing quality care for your community. And while it can be challenging, planning for your eventual exit from the business is one of the best things you can do to preserve the value of your business, ensure your legacy, and achieve the retirement goals you desire. And so after working with our exit planning team, you will receive a summary report that includes a business health check and cost of care analysis, an enterprise valuation, an analysis of your business value drivers and tips to maximize value, a summary of paths to exit the business. And so contact us to see if you qualify for grant-funded succession planning services. You can reach out to Ann McSweeney, who's our Child Care Program Director. And again, you can access other business resources webinars, and other guides on our website at icagroup.org/childcare. Thanks so much and have a great day.